Teeth pains.
Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Keith Paints. This week, we celebrate Squig Day with a bunch of other YouTubers by painting a squig. A few of us, like myself, have decided to sculpt our squigs as well. This is my squig. I call him Squeeg. I sculpted him in Blender. I started by modeling and posing him, instead of just sculpting. I'm much more effective modeling things first, than sculpting on top of that. I'm not quite good enough with the sculpting tools to bring my dreams to life with them just yet. I find the more calculated nature of modeling much easier to work with. My computer is pretty old and can hardly handle the sculpting sometimes, let alone the simultaneous screencasting, so I didn't record the whole process, just the first few hours. And while I was happy with the work I did here, I looked at squigs on GW's website and realized I was doing it wrong. Squigs don't have human muscled legs, they're more chicken-like things. So I didn't start over, again, this being my second go of it already. What I ended up doing was spending probably 5 times as long fixing it. Always have proper references, lesson learned. Well, probably not, but anyway, I got him modeled and posed. I originally wanted to do multiple poses, but inevitably scaled it back to one, as these things always take longer than I make time for. He's posed, foot elevated on a skull, looking up and to the left a little, giving him something of a contrapposto pose, if that's possible without shoulders. Like any squig, he looks somewhat angry, with his sharp teeth parted as he roars defiantly into the sky. I guess. I didn't want to make a mini though, I wanted to make something more like a little statue, and I wanted to give him a tall display base as well. The problem is that at 75mm tall, his base didn't fit on my build plate. Not as tall as I wanted it anyway. I don't want no 1-inch high base or nothing. So I cut it up and made all these little registration marks, and it didn't print properly. His face didn't either, but it wasn't so bad. I didn't support the upper teeth enough, and they were a little messed up, but I could fix it. The base too, I guess. I'll make it work. But then I remembered. I want to share this project with others, if I can. And it wouldn't do to not have a fully successful print. In the end, I decided to size it down to 50mm, so I wouldn't have to deal with an unsatisfactory base size. It will be as tall as I want it in relation to the sculpture, even if both are only 2/3 as tall. And it worked, though it did take 2 prints. I'm going to take a minute here to complain about Lychee Slicer. In comparison to Cheeto Sucks, it works really well. I'm not into subscriptions for things, so I use the free version. And what irritates me is the automatic hole detection. I imported and supported both the head and the body fine, and since the free version only gives you crappy little skates compared to what I'm used to, I brought the files into Blender, deleted the skates, and replaced them with my own. When I bring things back into Lychee Slicer, it now says there are hundreds of detected holes in the face, where there were none before. This frustrated me, so I used their crappy skates for the head, and it didn't adhere to the build plate, necessitating a now 3rd print. So I used the one with hundreds of holes that it straight up told me would fail to print. Not wishing to do a 4th print, I printed 2 heads, just in case one failed, and 1 more body, in case everything went well. Then I would have 2 full 50mm models, and wouldn't you know it, the ones with hundreds of holes printed just fine. It's pretty clear that this whole thing here is a lie to try and get you to spend money. I will never spend money on this product, and as soon as I find a good enough alternative, I will replace it. Alright, no more digital, now only physical. I glued together the mostly properly printed parts of the base, and filled the holes with green stuff. I guess I gave up on this looking great by this point, because instead of filling all the holes with green stuff, I tried filling some of them with super glue, which I had seen other people do. It didn't work that well, though the green stuff ended up sanding nice and smooth. The smaller base printed funny, but well enough that a little sanding fixed the edges. I also fixed up the teeth on the big one. They don't look as good as the little ones, but they don't look terrible. Okay, finally onto painting. I start by painting inside the mouths. That's why I printed them in 2 parts, so I could paint the inside with ease. I mixed a little Screamer Pink into Bugman's Glow and base coated inside of all 3 models, as well as the gums around the teeth. I gave everything but the tongue a wash with Reichland Flesh Shade. The tongue got 2 coats of Carroburg Crimson. While the washes dried, I base coated the teeth with Xandri Dust, and gave them a wash with Seraphim Sepia. I layered Bugman's Glow on the gums, avoiding the recesses, and layered a bit in a couple spots in the mouth as well. The tongues I stippled with a mix of Mephiston Red and Screamer Pink. Back to the teeth, I layered more Xandri Dust on, leaving a good space next to the gums. I then mixed in some Ushabti bone and drew lines on all the teeth, leaving some Xandri Dust visible near the gums, but totally covered up near the tip. I did this again with pure Ushabti bone, and then only on the outside I did it twice more with Screaming Skull mixed in and then pure Screaming Skull. With the teeth and the inside of the mouth all complete, I then glued all the heads on. Only having 1 day to paint and half another to make the video, this is as far as the little ones got. They're ready to be completed, possibly yellow as part of my next Goobertown Roulette challenge. We'll see. The big guy is going to be red. I decided to overbrush him with lots of paint to cover him quickly. It shouldn't be too hard to avoid getting any on the teeth. I'll do the lips and risky parts with a regular brush. It wasn't too hard to fix. So I got him all Mephiston Red, and my plan was to use the same technique to stipple on lighter reds and oranges or something, and for whatever reason, it just all looked the same to me. He had a nice texture from the stippling, but the lighter spots didn't stand out as much as I felt they should by then. I gave him a full wash with Carroburg Crimson, hoping some dark would bring out the light spots more, and then just took some Troll Slayer Orange and stippled that lightly on top of the head, back, and legs. I feel I kinda failed on the shading side of things, but his texture looks pretty good, and I'm pretty happy with the teeth too. I didn't want to spend too much time on the base. I've been burning myself out a little, this being my 3rd video out in a week between the 2 channels. That's why I gave up on the little one so easily. The big base, I didn't give enough detail when I sculpted it, so you could see some jagginess to it. So I covered the entire thing with Armageddon Dust technical paint, and then washed it 2 or 3 times with Agrax Earthshade. I glued a couple pieces of slate to it in the process to break it up a little, and covered the thing with grass tufts. I mean, it's not Jazza levels of crazy, but there are quite a few on there. With some Abaddon Black and Flash Gets Yellow for the eyes, the 75mm Squeeg is complete. I didn't include this size in the download, but the 50mm is the same model scaled down, so you could scale it up if you'd like to paint it at this size. I added a bunch of texture to him, which was hardly even visible at this size. On the smaller ones, it wasn't really visible at all. It made supporting him kind of silly in a couple spots, but I learned a lot in the process. I'm going to be doing a lot more sculpting in the future, I think. I already can't wait for Squig Day next year. So what do you think of Squeeg, the Squig? You can download him on Thingiverse if you like, links in the description. And if you enjoyed the video, then maybe hit the like button. Thanks for watching.